Hat, sunglasses, Pepsi, notes, sources, thick skin, check. You already know. Let's go. Welcome to Golden Blue today, everybody. This is a college football channel. So if you like college football, hit the like and subscribe button. It's that simple. Also, send gear to represent your team and be a part of my background forever. All you have to do is send it to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Well, it's time to talk about conference championships in the Power 5 conferences. Two of them are set. The SEC Championship will be Georgia versus LSU, and the ACC Championship will be Clemson versus North Carolina. But the other Power 5 Conference Championships, no, they have not been decided. First, we have the Big 12. Well, we know that TCU will be in the Big 12 Championship, but who will they have a rematch with? Will it be Oklahoma State? Will it be Kansas State? Is Texas still in the race? I don't know. They'll have a rematch with somebody. For the Big Ten, it's basically the winner of Ohio State, Michigan. They'll be in, but the Big Ten West is kind of a mess right now. Nobody has decided that they want to win the Big Ten West just yet. Wisconsin looked good there at the beginning of the season. Then it was Minnesota. It looked like Minnesota was going to win the Big Ten. Then Illinois took over, and right now it looks like Purdue might be in the driver's seat of winning the Big Ten West. Who knows who's going to win the Big Ten West, but hopefully for the Big Ten's sake, it's whoever wins the Ohio State-Michigan game that wins the Big Ten. Otherwise, the Big Ten will be left out of the playoffs. And then there's the Pac-12. USC, it looks like USC will be in the Pac-12 championship, but they've had the easiest schedule. They only have one loss, and it was to Utah, but really their best win is Oregon State. Actually, that's their only good win. USC has had a pretty easy schedule. They will have to play UCLA, but for the other contestants, well, Washington beat Oregon. Oregon beat UCLA. UCLA beat Washington. Utah, who beat USC, lost to UCLA. And don't forget, even though Utah has 2 losses, they only have 1 Pac-12 loss, and that was to UCLA. So it could be a rematch between Utah and USC in the Pac-12 championship, which is probably what the Pac-12 wants, because that means USC could actually redeem themselves and beat Utah, and you'd have a 1-loss Pac-12 champion who beat the team that they lost to previously in the year. So who knows what the Pac-12 championship is going to look like. And if UCLA beats USC because they still have to play, then I have no idea how they're going to figure out who's going to be in the Pac-12 championship. It's not looking good for the Pac-12 as far as making the playoffs right now. So let's talk about the 2 conference championships we can actually talk about right now. The first one is the ACC Championship game. It's going to be Clemson against North Carolina. Both of these teams are 9-1. For the FPI matchup predictor, they give Clemson the edge, a 73.2% chance of winning this game. Good wins for Clemson at number 21 Wake Forest, number 10 NC State, at Florida State, and Syracuse. And also a good win against Louisville. You have to note that one as well. Their only loss is at Notre Dame, 35-14. Now, for North Carolina, 2 good wins at Duke and at Wake Forest, and their only loss also to Notre Dame, 45-32. And remember, USC also has to play Notre Dame, so Notre Dame could hurt their chances of getting to the playoffs. Notre Dame has been a playoff record this year. Remaining games for Clemson is the Miami Hurricanes and South Carolina, both home games. For North Carolina, their remaining games, Georgia Tech and NC State. Both are home games. So an easy remaining schedule for both of these teams. Now for Clemson, they averaged 34.2 points per game, which is 28th, and allowed 21 points per game, which is, well, 28th. For North Carolina, they are all offense. They averaged 40.1 points per game, which is 10th, but allowed 31.3 points per game, which is 110th. Not a good defense at all. The quarterback for Clemson is DJ Uiagalelei, having a better season than what he did last year. 196 for 300. That's 65.3%. He's thrown for 2,179 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. For the North Carolina Tar Heels, their quarterback is Drake May, and he's looked pretty good. 253 for 361. That's 70.1%. He's thrown for 3,412 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And oh yes, he's their leading rusher as well. 133 carries for 584 yards, 4.4 yards a carry, and 5 touchdowns. The North Carolina offense relies heavily on their quarterback. For Clemson, their leading running back is Will Shipley, 154 carries for 899 yards, 5.8 yards a carry, and 12 touchdowns. So these are high potent offenses, but North Carolina has a terrible defense. The quarterback could use some help in the running game. He is their leading rusher. So can North Carolina stop the passing attack of DJ Uiagalelei and the running attack of Will Shipley? That's going to be the biggest question, because I do think North Carolina will put points on the board. The only thing that I don't like is, even though that Clemson has a better defense than North Carolina, it's not great. I don't think Clemson will be able to stop North Carolina as far as consistently goes. And remember, there's going to be a big North Carolina crowd at this game. The ACC Championship game is held in Charlotte. This could be a straight up 50-50 split or even a North Carolina heavy crowd. This could be a crowd that favors North Carolina as far as percentages go. Something to keep your eyes on for that game. Personally, I do think an upset could happen in the ACC Championship. I think North Carolina could most definitely beat Clemson. Clemson has to figure out how to stop opposing offenses more consistently. However, for North Carolina, they hemorrhage yards and points, so they're not stopping anybody. So the question is, can Clemson put up enough points to keep up with the North Carolina offense and stop them just enough times to win this football game? Because the ACC playoff hopes ride on this game. Now, if both of these teams win out, can the winner have an excellent chance of getting to the playoffs, even if that winner is North Carolina? I don't know. I don't think the playoff committee is going to be too favorable about that North Carolina defense as far as getting them into the playoffs. So really, the playoff hopes of the ACC rely heavily on Clemson. I don't know about this, Tiger fans. I'm kind of leaning towards North Carolina. I'm not going to give a prediction right now, but just to give you a heads up, yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards North Carolina. On to the SEC Championship game. Yes, it is decided. It's going to be Georgia, who's undefeated right now, 10-0, against LSU, who's 8-2. FPI gives Georgia the edge, giving them an 84.5% chance of winning this game. Kind of lopsided if you ask me. Good wins for Georgia, number 11 Oregon, number 1 Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Good wins for LSU, Mississippi State, number 7 Ole Miss, number 6 Alabama. So very evenly matched whenever it comes to good wins. No losses for Georgia, but they did have a bad game against Kent State and at Missouri. Escaped a road win against Missouri. And then for LSU, 2 losses against Florida State, Tennessee. Not bad losses, but they are losses. And a couple of bad games at Auburn and at Arkansas. Remaining schedule for both of these teams. For Georgia, it's at Kentucky, who just got beat by Vanderbilt, and then Georgia Tech. So Georgia should be undefeated going into the SEC Championship game. For LSU, they get UAB at home, and then at Texas A&M. They are better than Texas A&M, but if they struggle like they did against Arkansas on the road, they could lose that game. However, I expect LSU to finish the season 10-2. Georgia averages 40.6 points per game, which is 7th, and allows 11.6 points per game, which is 2nd. So they're good on both sides of the ball. For LSU, they average 32.6 points per game, which is 39th. And they allow 21 points per game, which is 29th. The quarterback battle is going to be very interesting. Georgia's quarterback, Stetson Bennett, 223 for 329. That's 67.8%. He's thrown for 2,895 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Slight dual threat quarterback, 35 carries for 144 yards, 4.1 yards a carry, and 7 touchdowns. For LSU, they do rely heavily on their quarterback. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, on the year, 195 for 283. That's 68.9%. He's thrown for 2,080 yards, 14 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. So a very efficient quarterback, but he can hurt you with his legs. 150 carries for 629 yards. That's 4.2 yards a carry and 10 touchdowns. But he's the leading running back for LSU. He needs some help on the running game. For Georgia, they don't have a great running game. It's more like running by committee. But their leading running back, Dejon Edwards, 93 carries for 497 yards. That's 5.3 yards a carry and 7 touchdowns. So Georgia does have a pretty good running game, but it's more like running by committee. That's why the leading running back for Georgia's numbers doesn't really jump off the screen. Now, LSU is a hot team, and they do have some good wins. But I do think that the crowd will be Georgia heavy, and I think Georgia's just too balanced on both sides of the ball. I think Georgia does beat LSU in the SEC Championship, and Georgia finishes 11-0, headed into the playoffs, probably going to be ranked number 1 in the nation when it comes to the playoffs. Now, does this mean that LSU absolutely has no chance? I don't think so. I think the quarterback, Jaden Daniels, does give them an opportunity to win this football game. And they do have a decent defense. Not a horrible defense like North Carolina's. But I'm still straight up picking Georgia as of right now. So y'all let me know in the comments section. Number 1, who do you think plays in the Pac-12 Championship, the Big 12 Championship, and the Big Ten Championship? Number 2, who do you think wins between Clemson and North Carolina in the ACC Championship? And number 3, who do you think wins between Georgia and LSU in the SEC Championship? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next show.